My name is Emily, and I'll never forget the moment I opened the invitation to my sister Rachel's wedding. It arrived just 4 days before the ceremony, late enough to feel like an afterthought. The envelope was elegant, gold-trimmed, and smelled faintly of expensive perfume. But when I pulled out the card, my heart sank. It didn't say, "Dear Emily," or "We can't wait to celebrate with you." Instead, it read, "Kitchen staff entrance only, back door of Grand Crest Hotel, 3 p.m. sharp." At first, I thought it was a mistake, a cruel joke maybe, but as I reread it, I realized this was no accident. Rachel and I had grown apart over the years, but I never thought it had come to this. Growing up, she was the golden child, the prom queen, straight-A student, future CEO. I was the artsy one, the teacher, the dreamer. Our parents never tried to hide their preferences. "Why can't you be more like your sister?" My mom would sigh every time I came home with paint on my jeans or another rejected grant application. Still, when Rachel got engaged to Scott, CEO of some tech startup that had just IPO'd, I sent her a heartfelt card and even offered to help with the wedding. She never replied, until now. Standing outside the Grand Crest Hotel on her big day, I debated whether I should even go in. But I had driven 4 hours, rented a dress I could barely afford, and taken 2 unpaid days off work. Part of me hoped it was a misunderstanding. Maybe once I walked in, Rachel would greet me with a hug and laugh at the mix-up. That hope shattered the moment I reached the back entrance. A hotel worker scanned my card and, without looking up, muttered, "Staff table's over there behind the service wall." I was seated behind a giant pillar near the kitchen doors. No decorations, no nameplate, just a plastic chair and a paper napkin. As waiters rushed past carrying trays of champagne and lobster, I sat in silence, listening to the faint sound of wedding music drifting in from the grand ballroom. And then I saw it, a folded note on the table. My name was written in Rachel's handwriting. "Know your place. Don't ruin this for me." My hands trembled. I wasn't just being excluded, I was being erased, and in that moment something inside me changed. I didn't know how or when, but I knew one thing: this story wasn't over yet. I sat in that shadowed corner of the ballroom, my fingers still clutching the note Rachel had left for me. "Know your place. Don't ruin this for me." It echoed louder than the music thumping through the wall. I wanted to leave. I wanted to walk out of the Grand Crest Hotel, drive the 4 hours home, and erase this whole day from memory. But something kept me rooted to the chair. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was the years of silent humiliation. Or maybe, deep down, I knew that something about today didn't feel quite finished. From my vantage point, I could still see part of the main ballroom through the open kitchen door. A sliver of marble floor, a flash of Rachel's designer wedding gown, a sparkle from the massive crystal chandelier that hung like a crown over the entire space. And then I saw him, Scott, the groom, the man who used to be my best friend. No, not just that. Years ago, before he became the CEO of Ritter Tech, before the headlines and the IPO and the expensive suits, Scott had been my friend, my partner in late-night diner runs, the person I called when life felt like too much. We'd lost touch after college, life got busy, and eventually I saw his name pop up in a press release, Rachel's fiancé. It felt like déjà vu and betrayal, all wrapped into one. Now I watched him standing at the altar, handsome as ever, expression tight. The ceremony was about to begin. I could hear the soft hum of the string quartet playing the first notes of the bridal march. The crowd turned. Rachel entered, dazzling in a gown that sparkled with every step. My mother dabbed at her eyes with a silk handkerchief. My father stood proudly, beaming, and yet the man waiting for her didn't smile. Scott's eyes scanned the crowd as if he was searching for something or someone. Then, as if drawn by a force beyond understanding, his gaze landed on me. Our eyes met. He didn't blink. I didn't look away. And in that moment, the impossible happened. As Rachel approached the altar, bouquet in hand, veil perfectly in place, Scott fumbled. The ring box slipped from his hand. The simple gold band flew through the air, bouncing once, twice, and rolled across the polished marble floor. It didn't stop until it landed right at the edge of the kitchen wall, right at my feet. Time froze. I bent down and picked it up, the cold metal resting in my palm like a secret. I looked up. Scott was still watching me, his face pale. Rachel whispered something harsh to him, but he didn't flinch. His eyes were locked on mine. I stood. Every head in the ballroom turned as I stepped into the light. A server tried to stop me. "Ma'am, you can't." But I walked past him without a word. My heart pounded like a drumbeat in my chest. I was shaking, not from nerves, but from something older, deeper. Rage, grief, truth. I walked straight down the aisle, heels clicking against the marble, and handed Scott the ring. "Think you dropped this," I said quietly. Gasps echoed through the room. Rachel's expression turned murderous. "You!" she hissed. "What are you doing here?" Before I could answer, Scott's father, Aaron Ritter, founder of Ritter Tech, stood abruptly from the front row. His face, normally composed and unreadable, had gone ghostly pale. "Scott," he said slowly, "is this her?" Scott took the ring from my hand, eyes never leaving mine. "Yes, Dad, this is her." Rachel looked from me to Scott, then to her father, confusion twisting into panic. "What is going on?" she demanded. "Why are you acting like this?" Scott took a deep breath and turned to the stunned guests. 17 years ago, he began, I met someone who changed my life. She challenged me. She believed in me. We had plans, big ones, to change the world, to build something meaningful. He paused. But someone didn't approve. Aaron flinched. She disappeared without a trace. Scott continued. No calls. No notes, just gone. And I thought she left me. The crowd murmured. But last week, he said, voice trembling slightly, I found out the truth. He looked directly at his father. You paid her family to make her disappear, and they accepted. A collective gasp swept through the hall. My mother stood suddenly, her face white. That's a lie, she cried, but I could see it in her eyes. It wasn't. Rachel's hand flew to her chest. You mean you were with her, before me? Scott turned to her. I never stopped thinking about her. Silence fell again. I can't marry you, Rachel, he said. Not like this, not with all these lies. Rachel screamed, but I didn't hear her. I was staring at Scott, my heart in my throat, and deep down I knew the past wasn't finished with us yet. Rachel's shriek echoed through the lavish ballroom like shattered glass. You're ruining everything, she shouted, her voice shrill and cracking. Her face, once powdered to perfection, was now flushed with rage and disbelief. But Scott didn't flinch. I should have walked away the moment I realized this wedding was never about love, he said calmly. It was about business, about image, about control. The silence was deafening. All eyes were on us, on me, the kitchen staff guest, the sister shoved to the sidelines, and suddenly I wasn't invisible anymore. Rachel spun toward our parents. Mom, Dad, do something. Our mother, dressed in her best designer gown, clutched her pearls like she was in a soap opera. Rebecca, she hissed at me, you've embarrassed this family enough. Please, just leave. But I was done being quiet. No, I said clearly, my voice carrying across the ballroom. I won't leave, not this time, not after everything you've hidden. Scott nodded at me, then faced the crowd again. Years ago, he said, Rebecca and I were together. We were serious. We had plans to start a nonprofit together, education, tech for underserved communities. She had vision, heart, purpose. He paused, but when my father found out, he decided she wasn't suitable. So he paid her mother to send her away, transferred her to a new college, cut off all communication, and told me she'd moved on. Gasps rippled through the room. The guests, once mesmerized by Rachel's grandeur, were now whispering behind manicured hands. I glanced over at my mother, who looked like she wanted to vanish into the marble floor. My father stared at his feet. Rachel, still stunned, stumbled backward a step. That's not true, right? Mom? Our mother's lips thinned. It was for your own good, she muttered. Scott was never meant for Rebecca. He was meant for you. Scott looked at her coldly. I was never yours to assign like a prize at a debutante ball. Rachel turned to her father-in-law, Aaron Ritter Sr., her last hope. You can fix this, right? You can still make it work. The merger. But the elder Ritter had gone quiet, his face tight with barely concealed rage and embarrassment. Scott continued. And speaking of the merger, this entire wedding was designed to secure a business deal between Ritter Tech and Rachel's father's company. But guess what? I already checked the numbers. Your company is failing, Mr. Matthews. This marriage wasn't about love. It was about money. Rachel's father, red-faced, barked, "Watch your mouth." "No," Scott snapped. "You watch yours, because I'm done being used." He pulled a folded piece of paper from his inner jacket pocket and held it up. "This is the termination notice for the merger, effective immediately." Rachel gasped like she'd been slapped. "You can't do this. You're my fiancé." "No," he said. "I was your pawn." He turned to me, his voice softer now. "But I'd like to think I can still be Rebecca's friend, or more, if she'll let me earn that back." I blinked, speechless. The room, still stunned, started to stir. People whispering, some quietly leaving, others recording the chaos on their phones. The spell of the perfect wedding was broken. Rachel collapsed into a nearby chair, her gown pooling around her like a white cloud of defeat. "You've ruined me," she whispered. "No," I said finally, stepping forward. "You did that to yourself when you forgot that real relationships aren't built on image or money?" Scott reached for my hand. "You've always known that. You were never the one who needed to change." In that moment, I realized something else too. This wasn't just about me and Scott. It was about reclaiming the voice I'd buried for so long. The girl who was told to stay quiet, stay small, stay invisible. She was done hiding. And the rest of this story? It was just beginning. As the ballroom slowly emptied, the once vibrant energy now replaced with hushed whispers and stunned silence, I found myself standing in the same heels I had worn for nearly 10 hours. Except now, my footing felt entirely different. I wasn't just the girl they shoved into the kitchen anymore. I was the woman who watched the truth detonate in the middle of a $1 million wedding and walked away with her dignity intact. Scott gently tugged my hand, guiding me toward one of the few quiet corners left in the room. His voice dropped to a low murmur. "Are you okay?" I nodded, though I wasn't sure it was true. Everything felt unreal, like I'd stepped into someone else's life. "I think so. I don't know how to feel yet. That was a lot." He gave me a crooked smile. "Tell me about it." We sat together for a while, away from the shattered champagne glasses and overturned flower arrangements. I caught glimpses of Rachel across the ballroom, her makeup streaked and her hair falling loose. Her father stood beside her, arguing in harsh whispers. My mother hovered close but avoided looking in my direction. Scott's voice broke through my thoughts. "I never stopped wondering about you, Rebecca. Not once." I turned toward him. "Then why didn't you try harder to find me?" His expression clouded. "I did. I called, emailed, even showed up at your old apartment. I left messages with your college, but everything just vanished. I thought you ghosted me. I figured maybe I wasn't enough." I stared at him, my throat tight. "And I thought you just left me behind, like I was an inconvenient memory." We both sat in that painful silence, the truth between us raw and newly unearthed. "But now," he said quietly, "we have a second chance if you want it." I didn't know what the future held. I didn't know if the wounds could fully heal, but I knew one thing. I didn't want to go back to being invisible. "Let's take it slow," I said. "Let's start with coffee, and this time, no disappearing acts." He grinned. "Deal." Just then, I felt a light tap on my shoulder. I turned to see Grandma. Her lips trembled slightly, but her eyes, those warm, tired eyes, held something softer than pity. They held pride. "I saw what you did," she said, her voice rough with age but steady. "And I want you to know, sweetheart, I've always known you deserved better." Tears prickled behind my eyes. "Thank you." She gave my hand a firm squeeze before slipping a small envelope into it. "Your grandfather left this for you. I wasn't supposed to give it until next month, but after today, I think you've earned it." I opened it slowly. Inside was a check, not just any check, but one made out in my name for $50,000. The memo line simply read, "To invest in your future, however you define it." Scott glanced at it and raised an eyebrow. "Looks like you've got options." I smiled through the tears, maybe for the first time in my life. As the night wound down, I made my way past the remnants of Rachel's grand wedding. She sat slouched in a chair, champagne spilled across her once flawless gown. Her eyes met mine. "You think you won?" she hissed. "No," I said. "I think I finally stopped losing." She scoffed, looking away. "I never wanted your life, Rachel," I continued. "All I ever wanted was a seat at the table, but you couldn't even give me that." "You had your place," she snapped. "You just didn't want to stay in it." And there it was, the truth laid bare. "I outgrew that place," I said simply. "And you know what? I'm glad you put me in the kitchen, because it showed me exactly who I was dealing with and who I never want to become." With that, I turned and walked away, not out of spite, but with peace. The kind that only comes when you finally stop begging for acceptance and start choosing yourself. Outside, the night air was crisp and alive. Scott joined me, slipping his jacket over my shoulders like it was the most natural thing in the world. "So," he said, grinning, "coffee tomorrow?" I smiled, holding Grandpa's check in my hand, the weight of it not nearly as heavy as the freedom I felt. "Coffee tomorrow," I said, "but I'm picking the place." We walked off into the night, two old souls with unfinished business, and maybe, just maybe, a future worth rewriting together. The days following the wedding were surreal. I half expected to wake up and find that everything, Scott, the dramatic fallout, the truth about the money, the family's lies, was all just some fever dream. But every morning I woke up to the same world that had finally cracked open and revealed what was underneath. Rachel's wedding made headlines, but not for the reasons she had hoped. "CEO's wedding implodes mid-vows as family secrets emerge," read one of the articles from a business gossip blog. Another read, "Ritter Empire shaken after heir exposes corruption. Wedding turns into scandal." It was everywhere. I stayed quiet, not giving interviews or statements, even though several outlets reached out. I wasn't in this for revenge. I just wanted peace, privacy, maybe some healing. Scott, however, had other plans. "Rebecca," he said during our third coffee date, yes, we'd kept that promise, "I'm going through with the foundation. You inspired it. I want to do something meaningful with the company now." I raised an eyebrow. "Even after the chaos your father unleashed?" He nodded. "Especially because of it." He explained his vision, a national foundation for underserved students, focused on science and education, the kind of support I had dreamed of as a kid, the kind of opportunities I had to claw my way toward. "I want you to lead it," he said. I nearly dropped my coffee. "You're not serious." "I am," he said. "You've seen what happens when people get overlooked, underestimated, discarded. You get it in your bones, Rebecca. And now we have the chance to do something different." My heart was pounding, not just at the opportunity, but because someone actually believed in me enough to offer it. Not because I was flashy or polished or had a famous last name, but because I had done the work, quietly, honestly. I told him I needed time to think. He understood. Meanwhile, my parents had gone quiet. At first, there were a few texts from my mother, things like, "Please don't let this family fall apart, and you've embarrassed us enough." But I didn't reply. Rachel, on the other hand, went full PR spin mode. On social media, she posted filtered selfies with vague captions like, "When life gives you setbacks, remember that diamonds are formed under pressure." She also unfollowed Scott, deleted her wedding posts, and started sharing photos from some exclusive spa in Arizona. I heard she was trying to shop a book deal, something about surviving betrayal. The irony nearly choked me. But the real surprise came one afternoon when I received a knock at my apartment door. It was Grandma. She stood there holding a weathered photo album and a brown paper bag of baked goods. "I thought you might like to see some old memories," she said, "and maybe let me apologize properly." I welcomed her in, unsure of what to expect. We sat on my little couch, flipping through pages filled with photos I hadn't seen in years, birthday parties where I was just out of frame, family vacations I'd conveniently been too busy to attend. "I didn't speak up when I should have," she said. "I knew your mother favored Rachel. I didn't agree with it. But I told myself it wasn't my place." She looked at me, her eyes misty. "Turns out silence can do just as much damage as cruelty." I squeezed her hand. "You're here now." We talked for hours. She listened, really listened, as I told her about the things I had buried, how alone I felt, how invisible I'd become. And she didn't flinch, didn't make excuses, just sat with me in the truth. Before she left, she said, "You don't owe anyone a seat at your table if they only ever expected you to serve." Her words stayed with me for days, and when Scott called again, this time with legal paperwork and a full proposal, I said yes. Yes to leading the foundation. Yes to stepping into the light. Yes to letting go of shame that was never mine to carry. The official press release announced the Ritter Education Initiative with a smiling photo of me next to Scott. The tagline, "Empowering those who were once overlooked." I finally saw my name attached to something I believed in, and it had nothing to do with who I was related to. It was about who I had become. At the launch event, held in a modest community center, I gave a short speech. I was once told to stay in the kitchen, that my presence would ruin the view, but today I stand here not as someone hiding behind the curtain, but as a voice at the table, and I'm here to pull up more chairs for people just like me. The crowd erupted. Scott stood off to the side, his eyes proud. It felt good, not perfect, not some fairy tale ending, but real, and real was enough. The weeks after the foundation launch were a whirlwind. News outlets covered it as a redemption story, some focusing on the corporate drama, others spotlighting me as a modern Cinderella. I hated that label. There was no fairy godmother in this story, just years of quiet work, ignored pain, and finally the truth. Scott and I spent more time together, not as lovers trying to recapture the past, but as partners trying to rebuild something better. "I want to take things slow," I told him one evening as we shared takeout in the office after a long day. He smiled, brushing a hair from my face. "You lead, I'll follow. This time, I won't disappear." And he didn't. Meanwhile, my parents tried to reinsert themselves into my life in the most predictable ways. "Come to dinner. Let's talk." "You're always so busy now, Rebecca." And from Mom, "Don't you think it's time we put the past behind us?" What she meant, of course, was her past, the deal she made, the lies she told, the choices she made that shattered my heart and rewrote my future. But I wasn't interested in brushing it under the rug. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need a big confrontation. I needed boundaries and peace. So I gave them both, politely, firmly. And when I didn't show up for the next family brunch, they finally stopped calling. Rachel, however, was another story. Her marriage to the minor European prince lasted exactly 4 months. Apparently, even royalty has limits, and Rachel's inability to live without designer champagne and drama was one of them. She tried to spin her divorce as an empowered woman's decision, but the tabloids were relentless, and when she reached out to me, it was with a bizarre mix of fake humility and veiled entitlement. "You should be thankful, you know," she said in one message. "If I hadn't married Scott, none of this would have happened for you." I didn't reply, because by now I had learned something valuable. Silence is sometimes the loudest way to reclaim your voice. The foundation grew faster than anyone expected. Within 6 months, we had funded 34 schools, launched STEM programs in underfunded districts, and created scholarship pipelines for first-generation college students. Every day, I saw kids who reminded me of myself, quiet, curious, constantly told they were too much or not enough. And every day, I fought to make sure they had the support I never did. One Friday afternoon, Scott surprised me at the office. "I have something for you," he said, holding a small box. My breath caught, heart fluttering, but when I opened it, it wasn't a ring. It was a tiny compass, silver with an engraving inside. For the girl who always knew where she was going, even when no one else did. I teared up. "This," he said gently, "is just a reminder that you never needed saving." You were always the one steering. That night, we sat on the balcony of our new place, a simple space overlooking the city, filled with secondhand furniture, books, and laughter. We weren't racing toward a happy ending. We were building a beginning, together. 1 year later, I walked into the community center that now bore my name, the Rebecca Ellis Learning Center. It was our biggest project yet, a full-service education hub offering tutoring, meals, and mentorship for underserved families. As I passed the lobby, I spotted a girl sitting alone, scribbling in a notebook. Big glasses, hair in a messy bun, intense focus. I smiled. "Hi," I said gently. "I'm Rebecca." She looked up, blinking behind her lenses. "I know, you run this place. My teacher says you're really smart." I laughed. "Well, I've made a lot of mistakes too, that's how you learn." She hesitated. "Can I show you something?" She opened her notebook to a hand-drawn blueprint of a solar-powered bus stop. It was brilliant. My throat tightened. "I think you should build it," I said, "and I think we can help." She beamed, and in that smile, I saw something I hadn't seen in a long time. Hope. They put me in the kitchen because they thought I was small, disposable, someone whose light didn't deserve to shine beside theirs. But here's what they didn't realize. The kitchen is where fires start, and I built an empire from the sparks.